Hey, so I've had a question that I keep on thinking about, and I thought about doing this on camera and just sort of verbalizing my thoughts and seeing if I can come to a conclusion here. And I figured I'd upload this video just in case anyone else finds this interesting or entertaining. So here I am. And if you're wondering what these things are over in the corner, this is my cherry Pepsi, which is actually pretty good. Not as good as cherry Coke, though, and water because I need to stay hydrated, especially while I'm talking a lot. So, what's the question that I'm here for? This is the Wayne Goss 00. And although I have other brushes that are objectively more versatile, higher quality, whatever, just better in this in whatever way, this is my most used brush in my collection, like by far. I tend to use this for setting powder. I like using this for my color correcting powder. I do prefer my squirrel hair brushes for finishing powders, but on a particularly oily day, because I have very oily skin, I prefer to use this because I don't want to destroy my squirrel brushes. So this just, like, anytime I think of a powder brush and I'm not looking for some very particular specialized brush, what am I trying to say? If I'm not looking for a specialized use, this is what comes to my mind just immediately. I love this brush. Let me see if I can get close up for you. It's a beautiful brush, and I think one of the biggest reasons I like this is the taper. I mean, look at that. That is a beautiful taper. So anyway, now that I've introduced this brush and talked about how much I like it and how much I use it, I'm debating getting another one. Now, this is a brush that has been out of stock for a very, very long time, since before I even knew what Fude was. I was able to get this one secondhand, and if I wanted another one, I would also need to get it secondhand. Now, here's the thing about this brush, and really any Wayne Goss brush on secondhand sites. They go for a lot of money, typically more than what they were sold for, and they go very quickly. So you kind of need to know beforehand what brush you want so that when it's available and you see it's available, you jump on it. And I saw Wayne Goss 00, I think it was the white one, or the white bristled one, the other day on, I think it was Mercari. And I didn't see it while it was for sale. I only saw it once it was sold. And for a moment, I was just disappointed, like, oh, I wish I had seen that. And then I thought to myself, well, if I had seen it, would I have actually bought it? And so that is where this video comes in, is if I see another one of these brushes come up for what I consider a reasonable price, and I'll talk about that later, will I buy it? Should I buy it? So that is the question that I will be trying to answer for myself. Let's see if we come to a conclusion. So I think maybe a good place to start off after introducing this is looking through my other, I'm going to call these powder brushes. So I do have other brushes I could probably include in here, but they're all smaller. So these are the ones that I would use either for setting powder or my color correcting powder and finishing powders. Maybe also like a sheer blush too. Those are kind of the powders that I'm looking at, not things that are like a pigmented blush, highlighter, anything like that. This is just for kind of my like sheer powder application is what I'm looking at. And that's what I really like this Wayne Goss brush for. But I have other brushes in this collection that I could use. So I want to go through, would I really prefer having this over having one of my other brushes? So let's start with the Sonia G Inochige Pro. This I actually purchased before the Wayne Goss 00. And this was actually maybe my first Fude brush, aside from my rougher brushes. But I think those were all eye brushes. This was my first powder brush in the Fude world. And I was super excited about this, and I had heard such good things about Sonia G. And I remember one thing that I remember hearing, especially when I was researching this brush, was that Sonia G brushes, and in particular the dyed hair brushes, feel like squirrel hair. And at the time, I had no idea what that meant because I didn't have any squirrel hair brushes. I'd never tried any squirrel hair brushes. And now that I do have squirrel hair brushes, I see what people mean. Because next to the Wayne Goss brush, the Sonia G brush is so much softer. So much softer. But it still has the stiffness. Like, it's not stiff, but it has enough stiffness to buff things in, to place product with a little bit more precision than something that's made with squirrel hair. But it's still so soft. So soft. It has that cloud-like application. It's just, you can actually buff things around too, which is great. It's like the best of both worlds with goat hair and squirrel hair. Now, the Wayne Goss brush doesn't, I wouldn't describe it that way at all. It's definitely much of a coarser hair brush. And if I'm not careful about using this to sweep across my face, as opposed to maybe trying to like push the hairs right on my skin instead of sweeping, it can actually be a little bit prickly. So I would say that overall, the Wayne Goss 00 brush is not as high of a quality as the Sonia G Inochige brush, but I like it so much better. I like the Wayne Goss 00 so much better than the Inochige Pro. And it just kind of baffles me because in all objective senses, the Inochige Pro is a better brush than the Wayne Goss 00. But they're a little bit different. As similar as they look, let's look at just the bristles. I think what sets them apart is the Wayne Goss 00 is a little bit bigger and it's more puffy. Like, it splays out a lot more than the Inochige. And maybe my Inochige just hasn't fully bloomed, but even if it does, it doesn't have that tapered tip to the 00 that I love so much. Now, can I use these two in the same way? Sure. But the 00, I feel like it's easier to sweep powder on, and it's faster to sweep powder on than the Inochige Pro. The Inochige Pro is a bit smaller, but I wouldn't think, just looking at them, that it's so small that it would be that big of a difference in terms of ease of putting on powder, but it is. For some reason, it is. In addition, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to describe this very well, but the Wayne Goss 00 sweeps powder on in a more fluid way than the Sonia G Inochige Pro. The Inochige Pro, the bristles have a bit more stiffness to them. They have a really nice flick to them, if that makes sense, which gives you a lot of control, a lot of precision, a lot of really good things. Like, this would be a really excellent blush or highlighter brush. I mean, this is a very, very versatile brush in general. But I think in that way, because it's so versatile, it isn't quite as made for powder, for sheer powder products, the way that the Wayne Goss 00 is. So, strangely enough, even though I have both of these brushes, I almost never use the Inochige Pro, or at least not for sheer powder products. I've used this mostly for highlight, I think. And as I get more into blushes, I think I'll use this for blush. But I don't see myself using this as much for putting on setting powder or my color correcting powder or finishing powders. I just don't like it as much as the Wayne Goss 00 or my other finishing powder brushes. I just don't like it nearly as much, which is surprising. And I feel like for as versatile of a brush it is, I think sometimes that's a little bit of a drawback too. So this is a great brush, but it just doesn't replace the Wayne Goss 00. And honestly, if I had to choose, I would rather have another Wayne Goss 00 than this Inochige Pro. I'd be willing to trade this in for another Wayne Goss 00 because I simply never reach for this. Even though it's a great brush, it's a great experience, I really prefer this one. I reach for this one more, I use it more, I enjoy it more. All right, so let's go on to, and this is the only one in this lineup that, like the Wayne Goss 00, is goat hair. Now this next one from Beautylish, this is the Yano Brush 2. So this is an interestingly shaped brush. I don't know if I'll be able to show it on screen, but one side of the brush, like this, is longer than this. So it gives kind of a cut-off shape on this side, and then it rounds out. And I thought that was really odd, but you know what? It gives this angle right here just the perfect angle for putting on a sheer blush, or for putting on like a finishing powder for my cheeks. I really like it for that. Now I'm comparing this with the Wayne Goss 00 simply because they're a similar size, and in terms of finishing powder, they could have similar usage. Now I would never use the Beautylish Brush 2 for setting powder because it's a combination of squirrel hair and goat hair. My oily skin without any powder in between it and this brush would probably hurt this brush over time. And just looking at these two, I don't think it's quite as straightforward as the Inochige versus the Wayne Goss 00. I do think that I still prefer the Beautylish Brush 2 for finishing products, but it's very specialized for that. And as much as I think I reach more for the brush 2 for finishing products, it doesn't have the same usage as the Wayne Goss brush 2. These are actually kind of different brushes in my collection. I use these for different things. So actually I don't think that this comparison is particularly helpful in answering the question that I'm asking. Because even if I have this brush in the collection, it doesn't really change my usage of my Wayne Goss brush. This is just better for finishing products, but it's not going to do my setting products or my color correcting powders the way that I'd use it with the Wayne Goss. Both of these are great brushes, by the way. These are probably my two most used brushes in my collection right now. Now this brush, I lusted over this brush for at least a year before finding it secondhand and getting it for a good price. This is such a great brush. This is the Kyureido Kiwami powder brush. I think it's K001 or something like that. This is a full squirrel hair brush, and let me tell you, when I say this is soft, if you've I feel like when I go to talk about brushes, it's always like, oh, this is so soft, and this is so soft, and that's so soft, and soft tends to lose its meaning. This feels like you're putting on powders with a cloud. That's what this feels like. And I love this for finishing powders. And I think this was just such a wonderful purpose. This is just the epitome of luxury makeup application. And it puts on just like the right amount of finishing powder too. I can go a little too heavy with finishing powder sometimes, and it can look a little too highlighty. And I typically use Hourglass. So Hourglass Mood Light, if you put too much on, you can look literally like a glazed donut. And I know some people go for that look, and that's cool, but I'm not. So this helps me put on the right amount, and it just feels so nice. But here's the thing, is this is 100% squirrel hair, and I have really oily skin. The only thing I can use this for is finishing powder. I wouldn't even use this on my second step of powder. My face needs to be fully powdered before this touches it, because otherwise I will ruin this brush. My oily skin will ruin this brush if I'm not careful with it. So this also, like the Beautylish brush, just, like, I guess it is similar to Wayne Goss in a way, actually more so than the others in terms of shape. It's not as tapered, but since it's made out of squirrel hair, it feels like the same amount of taperedness to me. But like, I'm never gonna use this squirrel hair brush on, like, for setting powder and things. But I'm definitely going to use it as finishing powder. And I think part of the reason I like this Kyureido brush so much is because it's so similar to the Wayne Goss brush. And that's actually why I purchased this. This was expensive. This was over $100. But I was so sure that I would like it because it was so similar in shape to the Wayne Goss. And like, yeah, it has a little bit more of a blunt tip. It's not bundled nearly as uniformly. It looks a little bit wonky, but man, does it feel nice. And it's because it's, to me, it's like this Wayne Goss 00 brush, but someone made it with squirrel hair instead. That's what it feels like on my face. So now that I'm seeing these, it's kind of like, I kind of already have another Wayne Goss brush. It's limited to finishing powders only. And I'm wondering, if I already have a brush that's like this one that does finishing powder, do I really need two of these for setting powder? I think the answer is no, but I think I want it to be yes because I want to buy another one of these. I just like this brush so much that I want to have a backup of it. But the thing is I don't want to have a backup. I don't want to store a backup. I don't like having backups of brushes because I don't want to store them. I want all my brushes to be out and usable. Yeah, these two, I would say, don't really inform me not getting another one of these. These are two very different brushes. I think I'm kind of using the Sonia G brush in a way that I don't prefer. To me, I think that this is just a tad too small to be a powder brush. Despite having a small face, I think I actually like really big fluffy powder brushes, even when I'm not trying to cover like a large amount of area. This I think is maybe a little bit too precise, a little bit too stiff, and it's not stiff. Like that's just the only word that I can think of to describe the way the bristles move. That makes me prefer to use this for highlight and blush, and less so for translucent powders. So I think I need to just use this a different way. But it's going to be very different from how I use the Wayne Goss 00. Now, the Beautylish Yano Series 2 brush, I like this brush, and I use this brush very differently than Wayne Goss 00, and I don't think that these are comparable to me in my usage at all. I think that this kind of applies finishing powder in the way that I tried to use this for finishing powder, but this does a better job. It just does a better job. I think the reason it does a better job is because it has that cutoff side, that more flat side, and that's the side I generally use. I feel like I keep on describing this. I don't know if I showed it very well. But you see how one side is like flatter than the other side? Like this side is very full. And this side looks like it's almost been cut off. Let's see if I can angle it this way. I don't know if it's clear that way either. But I think the way that these are cut, they're not cut, they're all uncut, but the way that this is bundled so that it looks like kind of part of the brush was cut off, it makes the perfect surface to put on a cheek product or a product you want to like sort of glaze across the cheeks, the cheekbones, and put on just the right amount of product in just the right way, in a very feathery, beautiful way. And I think that's what I was always trying to do with the Wayne Goss brush. Now, I was holding it in like funky ways next to my cheekbone, trying to get it to go up a certain way. And it just didn't quite do it. And I think it's partly the way that this is constructed compared to this. And also I think it's because this is a fluffier brush. This is, I think it's bigger in all ways, or at least fluffier than the Wayne Goss brush. And it's less dense, and I think that helps a lot. So these two I think I use in a lot of a different way than the Wayne Goss brush. Now this one, the Kyureido brush, I think is, to me, the Wayne Goss 00 brush that I can use for a finishing powder. So I kind of already have two Wayne Goss brushes. So maybe if I relegate this one to only using for setting powder, like my base powder products, and then this only for finishing powder, I think maybe where the want comes in is when I put on powders, I have a few different layers. Again, I have oily skin. My skin can take powder. Although, to be fair, I don't like powdery powders. And you know what? Let me show you the products. Why not? All right, so these are kind of the steps in my powdering process that I usually take. These two I kind of use the same way. These are kind of sort of dupes for one another in a way. So I basically do 4 layers. I don't always do all 4, but I typically do. Or at least if I'm wearing, I'll go over the few different ways that I do this. But if I wear all layers, I start off with my Bareminerals original foundation. And this is in the color medium. And none of these brushes are used for this. I use a buffing brush. Vastly prefer the Sonia G Face 1, which has been renamed to the Buffer Pro, over anything else. And I buff this in. Now, the problem with this product is, as much as I like it, as much as it's the only foundation that my skin really tolerates, is it doesn't play nice with most other products on top of it, or at least on my skin. Because I can't even put the Bareminerals finishing powder or setting powder, whatever their mineral veil is supposed to be. I can't use that with this. It'll turn very cakey, very chalky instantly and looks awful. So I have to be careful about what I put on top of this, and I have to be careful about how I put it on top of this, because this turns very cakey when you put things on top of it very quickly. So, and I just realized I have these out of order. So what I have to do next is go in with a setting powder that it likes and that it plays well with. And this is the Westman Atelier setting powder. It has some fancy name and I forget what it is. In the color Bubble. So this is the pink one. It's a very light pink in very luxurious packaging. And this is one of the 2 setting powders that I've found that works with Bareminerals. And the other one is the Pat McGrath Under Eye Blurring Powder. Both of these are pretty comparable to each other in my opinion. The reason I got the Westman Atelier powder is because it's pink. And Pat McGrath, unfortunately, does not make a pink setting powder. I tried the white one, or the one color translucent, and it looked white on me, which is unfortunately very normal for translucent powders on me. They tend to look very white on my saturated skin tone. So I went with, this is yellow. I maybe should have gone with medium. This is kind of easy to tell that it's yellow on my face. In some lightings, not all. But I think pink would have been a lot better. But once I get through this, I'll probably try medium. Or maybe I'll just stick with Westman Atelier if they ever come out with refills for the powder. But this does work with Bareminerals foundation. So I can set it with this or the Westman Atelier. Either one of those is fine. And that's typically what I use my Wayne Goss for. Now this can be a little bit of a messy process because I have oily skin. Despite a lot of people saying that powder foundation and Bareminerals powder foundation is really good for oily skin, I find it to be a little bit messy with oily skin. So it can come up a little bit on this brush. My oils can come through it and get on the brush. So it's really important that the brush that's putting down my setting powder is a workhorse and that it can take a lot of abuse, and specifically abuse with my facial oils. So that's why I use this for, and I think that's another reason that I was looking to get another one of these, is I kind of expect to ruin this after a while. Because I think maybe you can even tell in the video, it has like stuff stuck in it. And that's like the foundation. That if you've never used Bareminerals original foundation, it kind of turns to a cream consistency on your face. I wouldn't call it a cream, but it does in a lot of ways act like a cream once you've buffed it in. And once that gets on a brush, it's, I really should be washing it off, but then I'd be washing this too often. So that's one reason I was thinking about getting another one of these. Now, I did originally try to use this as sort of the backup whenever the Wayne Goss one got too dirty, but I don't like using it as much. It just doesn't do what I want it to do. It doesn't feel the way I want it to feel. The The end result's honestly the same. It's fine, but I'd very much prefer to have another Wayne Goss 00. Now, I did try to use this brush to put on setting powder, and this is the Florasis. I don't remember what this is named. It has a name of some sort. But this came for free with my Florasis powder. And while it is great at putting on this powder, it's really not good at doing anything else. But hey, I got this for free, so I was actually very impressed with this. But it's not versatile. It doesn't put on setting powder the way that I want it to. I won't say that it puts it on cakey, but I think that's because the two setting powders I have, like, you can't really cake them up. Like, I've tried. I've actually done an experiment to see how much I can put on before it gets cakey, and I got tired of putting it on before it got cakey, so I was pleased with that. But this just doesn't quite put on the thin veil that I want. It doesn't move it around the way that I want. It's just a little too, it's too airy, it's too flimsy. I don't know. It just doesn't, it's not the Wayne Goss 00, basically. But it is nice for what it is. But it's not for setting powder, at least not for me. And so that brings me to the next step of powder that I put on. After I put on my setting powder, I like this color correcting powder. Now, I did try to use this as a setting powder, and it doesn't really set anything, so I don't recommend using it for that. I don't know if the color is going to pick up very well on camera. It is very light, but it's half the pan is like this pale pink color, and the other half is this pale green color. And this is a really fantastic finishing powder. Now, this finish will give you kind of a like a natural matte, soft focus. I don't know what the actual words are. This is like this will give my skin a finish as if my skin has all of the life and luminosity in it without being oily. It allows my skin to retain radiance without looking greasy. And I really like that about it. In addition, it has a light color correction going on, which I really like for my skin. It really just, it helps diffuse, whatever stuff is going on with my skin. And it just feels nice on my skin. So I really quite like this. And as much as the brush that it came with puts it on very nicely, especially once I've already set my face, I still prefer using the Wayne Goss for it. The Wayne Goss just glides on a little bit more. I can get the tip and like all of the nooks and crannies of my face. I mean, the brush that came with it works too. Again, it's very nice for a synthetic brush that I got for free. And the fact that I'm even comparing it to this brush is amazing. But I still just prefer the Wayne Goss so much. I really do prefer it. But I don't think that it's enough for me to buy another Wayne Goss brush, because that's a pretty substantial investment. But I don't like this brush as much. It's like I'm trying to talk myself out of getting a Wayne Goss brush because I know I don't really need it. But I want it. I want it. I really like it. And I do use this. It's not like I'm thinking about getting something that I just want to want it. I actually do use this a lot. It's just, do I need it right now? But also the problem is if I don't purchase it when I see it, I can't purchase it when I do decide that I want it. If I decide that I want it. Because I can't just go out and buy this. It has to pop up on a secondhand site. Ugh, this is difficult. Well, let's continue with my powders. So, Bareminerals foundation, setting powder, color correcting powder. And this also is like pre-finishing powders, what I consider it. Sometimes I like going with just this on top, but if I want extra luminosity, I have my Hourglass powders. Now, I'm not going to bring out all of my Hourglass powders. This is Mood Light. This is what I like using on cheeks. I almost use it as a highlighter, almost like a really, really subtle highlighter, but I'll go over my face with it too, as long as I can go light enough. And I'll probably pick up Ethereal Light at some point too, because I like that one as well. And for this finishing powder, originally I was using either the Wayne Goss or the Sonia G Inochige Pro. And they were both fine, but they didn't quite give me what I wanted. Both of these do a much better job at what I was trying to do. And I kind of use these both interchangeably. I think that the Beautylish Yano Brush 2 is better at putting things on my cheekbones, kind of where I would apply like blush or highlight. So when I'm trying to do a finishing powder in that area, I really like this. And then this one I kind of prefer for like all over the face use. I can use this on my cheeks as well, and I can use this on my whole face. This is actually quite nice and fluffy. I think the main difference between these, aside from their bundling, or well, I should say shape, is density. The 02 brush is a lot fluffier, a lot less dense than the Kyureido brush. They're both very, like, it's honestly hard to tell the density between them because they're both just so soft. Although I will say the Kyureido one's softer, but the Kyureido one is also 100% squirrel, whereas the 02 brush is a combination. But I like both of these for my Hourglass finishing powders, and I don't think that I would change that. That being said, I don't think I would use either one of these for my Florasis powder. And I think part of that is because just how oily my skin is, that I would be afraid that just having the setting powder on my face wouldn't be enough to protect these brushes against my face oils. So I like having both my setting powder and this powder before I use these on my face. I hope that makes sense. I'm probably being too protective of them, but I don't really want to purchase these again. So I'd rather just be very careful with them. That's how I tend to put powder on my face and kind of why I have these different brushes, but I'm still stuck, I think, if I still want another Wayne Goss 00 brush. Because I think these two take care of the Hourglass powder, and I use a totally different brush set for my Bareminerals anyway. But for my setting powder, my Florasis powder, I very much prefer my Wayne Goss. And you would think I would be able to choose, that I would be able to use these two brushes between these powders, but I don't like doing that. Oh yeah, I have this brush out here too. I don't know if I really even should have brought this one out here. I don't think you can see the writing on this anymore. This is an incredibly old brush. This is from Makeup Forever. I'm pretty sure I got this like a decade ago. Probably over a decade ago, actually. This is very old. This was my first brush, and for a long time, it was my only brush. And I would use this for Bareminerals. So for a long time, this was my only brush, and I would use this for anything that I had. Now at the time, I really only had Bareminerals, and I guess the Bareminerals Mineral Veil, although I never used them together. I would use one or the other, and I would use this for both of them. I would say now, after having used a flat top brush, this isn't nearly as good for buffing in the Bareminerals foundation, although I think this could be a good finishing powder brush, as long as you want something that's pretty dense, and this is pretty dense. But I don't think that I'd like this for any of my powders. I really like brushes that sweep my finishing powders across, and anything that's really used for buffing, I would probably just use for my Bareminerals. I guess I just thought of this as a powder brush, so I included this here, but I don't think that this would work with any of my finishing powders, or I should say any of my other powders besides Bareminerals. So this does not decrease my want of another Wayne Goss 00 brush. So I feel like I'm back at the beginning again. I still want another Wayne Goss 00 brush, but I really question if I need it. I don't think that I need it. So I think here's the issue. Maybe the main issue is I like this brush, and I'm using this in a way that will probably degrade it over time, because I'm using it to set my skin, my oily skin. This is the brush that's coming into the most contact with my oily skin. And even though it's goat hair, that will probably degrade it over time. Not as quickly as a squirrel hairbrush, but still it will over time, I imagine. And I think what scares me the most, and maybe the reason why I want a Wayne Goss brush the most, is if I really do ruin this and I take this out and I take this away, I don't have anything in this lineup that I would really want to use for all of these powders. I think what I would try to do is use the Inochige for my setting powders and then use the Florasis brush with the Florasis powder, but I don't think that I would enjoy that nearly as much, and I don't think that it would give me the finish that I want. Because I think rather than this lineup, what I would rather do is take away this one and this one. And honestly, this one. I don't really use this one anymore. And have these three plus another one of these. Because then these would be used for my finishing powder, and then my Wayne Goss brushes would be used for my setting powder and sort of my in-between powders. So I think my real issue is I have a really nice brush that I don't want. And I have another brush that I want another of. And I keep on trying to use the Inochige to be another Wayne Goss 00. And that's not what it is, at least to me. Maybe other people can use it in the same way. And I imagine a lot of people would actually prefer this brush to the Wayne Goss. But I don't. At least not in this way. Not the way that I'm trying to use it. So is that the answer? Should I sell this brush and then purchase another Wayne Goss? I think that would make me happier. I think I would enjoy that. So I think this is what I might do. What I will do is I'm going to put my Inochige and the Florasis brush up for sale. And I'm going to try to sell these and see if I can get enough money to purchase another Wayne Goss 00. And in the meantime, because I don't expect this to sell quickly, I know that there's others just like this on the site that are going for less than what I would sell this for. In the meantime, I'm going to try to use this as a highlighter and blush brush and see if I like it that way. The Florasis brush, I don't expect it to go for very much if it even sells, but I enjoyed it. I like that I got it for free. It works really well with this on its own, but I think I'd rather have the Wayne Goss, another Wayne Goss. I would rather use this brush in all situations than this brush. So I'd rather just not have this take up space in my collection. So I don't think I'm going to be able to come to a full conclusion in this video, but I think the question still stands whether or not I should purchase another one of these. I do think that it would be used, though. I don't think it would be a bad purchase. But I think if I got another one of these, I would need to find another use for the Sonia G Inochige Pro. But I think I need to do that anyway, because I don't like using this as a powder brush. And then the Florasis one, I think I should also part with this because I just don't use it. I enjoyed having it. It's a great brush for what it is. But I think in all cases, I think I'd rather use my Wayne Goss 00. So right now I'm leaning towards, if one pops up, maybe I should buy another one of these. But I think if I do, I need to go through my collection and maybe rid myself of other brushes that I don't want or need or use. So maybe this means that I need to do another video of going through my whole brush collection and seeing what I need to either find a better use for or what I maybe need to say goodbye to. So sorry for an inconclusive video. I was hoping that this would be easy. I was hoping that I would just talk myself out of getting the Wayne Goss 00, but I think my wants make sense. I don't need it right now, obviously, but I think if I bought this, I would use it. And I think this is probably the one brush where it would be good to have a backup. I don't want to buy it as a backup. I would buy it to use it. I don't want to store this. But I think I would like having two of these brushes. I think what I would end up doing is like changing them out once one gets dirty. And then once both of them are dirty, I would like wash all of my dirty brushes. Because I do just use this so often. So I guess that's a wrap for this. I think at some point I'm going to do a whole overview of my whole brush collection, which is a lot bigger than I thought it was. So stay tuned for that. I hope that this was interesting, entertaining, I can't imagine that it was actually helpful. But thank you for watching, and stay tuned for next time, and maybe for a follow-up video at some point. We'll see what I actually end up doing. So again, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.